The Healer's War by Elizabeth Ann Scarborough. So this is episode 27 of a series I'm doing called The Masterpieces of Science Fiction. It's 140 books that I'm reading through, and this is the 27th book I've read in the series. And this book was copyright 1988, and in 1990 this book won the Nebula Award for Best Novel. And we do have a little bit of extra cover art here. And this book, while it's in this series that I'm doing called The Masterpieces of Science Fiction, after finishing this book, it's clearly not a work of what we consider science fiction. A lot of these books are kind of just, it seems like, grouped under this umbrella maybe of speculative fiction, which is fine. But this book is really a historical fiction novel with a little bit of fantasy element going on in it. And Elizabeth Ann Scarborough, she actually served in Vietnam as a combat nurse. And most of this book is loosely based on her experiences there. I think she said in the back, this isn't very spoilerish, but most of her experiences with her patients were kind of based on real events. Everything else was just kind of fictionalized to create this story and this narrative. But as you read it, you can see how her thoughts and just the experience of being over there kind of comes through in this fictionalized telling of this story. So what this book mostly is, it's kind of, you could kind of think of it split into two parts in this book. And the first part of the book mostly just revolves around our main character, Kitty, and she's a combat nurse in Vietnam. And she's kind of dealing with, of course, being over there in this horrific circumstance in the Vietnam War. We all know it was just really bad all around for everybody. There's issues that she's dealing with coworkers, with patients, going out with fellow, with officers and with other GIs and other women who were there in the war. So you get a very unique perspective of what it's like to be a relatively attractive woman in a situation like this. And one of the main themes that's kind of going through this book the whole time is just trying to keep your humanity, because there's things that are just constantly trying to strip away your humanity in all sorts of ways, and ways that I never even thought would be possible. So now getting into the second half of the book, and this may seem like spoiler territory, but I'm not getting in depth anything beyond what you can read on the back of this book. But there's some circumstances that put our main character kind of off into the jungle with very little help, trying to make her way back and make her way safely back out of this jungle where everything is going on. We've got the Vietnamese people, the Viet Cong, you've got U.S. soldiers, and a little bit before this happens, there was a Vietnamese kind of healer that was brought in and put under her care at one point while she was working at the hospital. And this kind of shaman, in a way, he had this mysterious kind of amulet, and as he was dying and kind of realizing this, he decided to pass this amulet on to our main character, Kitty. And so this is where the fantasy element comes in, and there's kind of a little bit of fantasy mystical thing that this amulet gives her. I don't want to really describe what it is, because to me it was kind of part of the fun of reading the book and kind of understanding what this did for her. And if you read the back of the book, I think it kind of gives that away too, so it's up to you if you wanted to read that part. But she's kind of thrust out into the jungle and in just a really bad situation, and there's this kind of like dream-like state or drug-induced state that kind of happens just because of not really knowing what's going on out in this jungle, trying to get back, the sounds and the sights and everything that's going on. It kind of takes, the second half of the book kind of takes a different tone, which I thought was done very well. So that's really it. You know, eventually at the end of the book, there's some resolution. There's some issues about like PTSD and reintegrating with society, and I think that part was done really well too. I wouldn't really call it a twist, but the way the book was resolved at the end, I wasn't sure how that was going to happen, and so that kind of kept me really intrigued going into the final part of the book, you know, wondering how this story was going to end. Was it going to be bittersweet? Was it going to be a happy ending? And yeah, you'll get an ending, so I don't want to give away what that ending is. So overall, this is a really good book. This is something I never would have probably stumbled across and read, and I'm glad I did. But this is a historical fiction mostly about war and Vietnam, more importantly, and a female perspective of someone who's there trying to help people as a nurse. And I think all of that is just really unique. And the way Elizabeth Ann Scarborough wrote this book and her writing quality is just really good. So if that sounds like something you're into, even though I have a sci-fi channel and there's not really any sci-fi elements in this book, still really good. If that's something that you wanted to switch gears and read something like that, then this is probably one of the best books that have been kind of put out in that kind of, you know, female perspective in a war. And she's not a soldier in this war, so just really interesting. So overall, I'm going to give that a 4-star, kind of probably on the lower end of the 4-star range, but it's just really hard to find any faults for what the book is. And you really do get a sense that she put some of her own heart and soul into the book, which I think goes a long way. And next, what I'm on to is Earth Abides by George R. Stewart. And I've already read the first chapter in this one, and I am loving it. I think this book is just right up my alley so far. I'm super excited to read it. I think I could probably read through this one pretty quick, so just look for a video review of that one coming up next. And once again, thanks for watching.